Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion for August 30th, 2016. Happy Tuesday to you. Boy, there's a lot going on in the tropics, so let me get right to it. First of all, this is going to be a lengthy discussion, so if you're interested in TD9 and all that that implies, it's not going to hurt my feelings if you skip ahead in the video to see what I say about that. It makes sense. But there's a lot going on, so we're going to start with Madeline in the Central Pacific, headed towards Hawaii, as you've probably heard by now, and the Big Island under a hurricane warning here. Hurricane watch is up for the central portion of the island chain, and the forecast is for this to bend to the south, with the center of the hurricane passing just south of the Big Island sometime early Thursday morning in the overnight hours of Wednesday into early Thursday. Possible hurricane conditions, a rare thing in Hawaii, but it's looking like this might actually happen, and if it's any more north than that, they could get a direct hit, which would be rather devastating for the area. So this needs to be taken very seriously. Hopefully people are preparing as they should in the region. Let's back out and look at a satellite picture of it. This will take me just a moment. So the Central Pacific region. Alright, scroll down here. Some of this is fun to just kind of do live as it's happening, so to speak. So here we go, the infrared colorized, and you can see there's Madeline. Not quite as organized as it was earlier. You don't see a distinct eye feature. That might be some good news. Any weakening that this can do before reaching Hawaii would be great. Right now it is almost in the exact same latitude as Hawaii, so it needs to have this high pressure area up here kind of push on it just a little bit to the south to shove it down, and maybe even get it more so that it'll miss. The core will miss. When I say it, I'm talking about the center or the core can miss the Big Island. And then following behind there is Lester. Now this is forecast to come along and then take much more of a northerly track over time and then start weakening somewhere in this vicinity. So I don't think it's going to have nearly the impact that Hurricane Madeline will in the Pacific. So we need to watch that very closely over the next few days as this closes in, and I will talk more about it in tomorrow morning's update as it closes in on Hawaii. Meanwhile, in the Atlantic Basin, we still have Hurricane Gaston just racking up the ace points out here, nothing more. Interest obviously to shipping lanes as it moves on out into the North Atlantic. Tropical Depression 8, which is just a nuisance here on the Outer Banks of North Carolina. TD9, which has all sorts of implications that I'm going to show you. Very interesting things that I have sort of run across here with the latest model run of the GFS, especially, that I want to go over with you here today. So you'll be seeing this first, unless other people are already talking about it, but I think I'll have the first video discussion on it. And then we have 92L out here in the extreme eastern Atlantic. Plenty of time to watch that. So the view here of the Northwest Atlantic Ocean to give you an idea of a couple of our players. This is Gaston, again moving out, obviously. Pretty well developed eye, nice healthy looking system. And then we have Tropical Depression number 8 spinning around up here to the southeast of Cape Hatteras. Probably is running out of time to develop, so I'm not too worried about it at the moment. Again, more of a nuisance. Overall, scattered showers and thunderstorms along the coast. Maybe the occasional choppy surf, with localized wind gusts, etc. that churn the water up, but no more than that. No big deal. Maybe even some water spouts. You never know. If the instability is enough, you might pop up some thunderstorms and get a few water spouts out of it, so be on the lookout for that. Meanwhile, in the Gulf of Mexico, Tropical Depression 9, I am just, let's just get the thing named so we can refer to it as a tropical storm and go from there. And if it is, it'll be called Hermine, unless for some reason TD8 beats it to the punch, which I doubt. First of all, I guess it's good that this system moved inland, because you can see it's got that outflow going on, but also so does TD9 for the first time that I can remember. Look at that feathering of the clouds and a clockwise motion. If this isn't tropical storm strength by now, I don't know what it's going to take, because this is the best satellite presentation that we've seen so far. Recon will be in there within the next couple of hours, and we will know near 2 o'clock Eastern Time between then and the 5 p.m. advisory if this is in fact Tropical Storm Hermine. So let's look at the sea surface temperatures, the upper ocean heat content. On the wide scale, lots of energy out here in the deep tropics for this system that's coming off Africa now. And then anything that is going on in the western Atlantic has plenty of fuel to work with. There's no doubt about that. I've been talking about that for weeks now. And then in the Gulf of Mexico specifically, the depression is located in this area. And it's interesting, there's a fairly low ocean heat content zone right through here. But that doesn't mean the water temperatures aren't warm. They are. Probably 29, 30 degrees Celsius or the mid to upper 80s Fahrenheit. But that area right here, you have some sort of downwelling going on, I guess. This is a warm eddy that broke off over here, part of the loop current, and it kind of broke off a few weeks ago and has been rotating westward. So there's plenty of warm water, but the upper ocean heat content isn't quite as high here. But it's fairly substantial up here in the northeast Gulf, enough so. I mean, even the surface of the ocean here, the Gulf, is plenty warm. So this is going to tap into some very warm and undisturbed water, and it's only a matter of the upper environment cooperating that this could approach hurricane intensity. None of the more reliable forecast models, and I'll show you this in a moment, are forecasting a hurricane before Florida, but you can't say it won't happen. All right? Remember, intensity skill is the least amount of skill in hurricane forecasting. That is where the least amount of skill lies, is with intensity forecasting. You can bust on the low side and on the high side. You can over forecast something. I want to say you, the Hurricane Center specialists, and they readily admit this. They readily admit this. This is a problem, and it's hard to model the center, especially of a hurricane, the core of a hurricane, and all the dynamics that shape that. And if you look at what we have here, very warm water temperatures in the Gulf, a tropical disturbance now, a depression here sitting over that warm water, seemingly favorable conditions aloft, but nothing's really developing out of it quickly. Now I'm going to get to this one in a minute. That was a little early. So to that end, what we were talking about here, you got pretty good vorticity, some energy kind of bleeding off to the northeast. There's TD number 8, there's Gaston, and here's our energy off of Africa. But there's a lot going for this system. If we look at the upper level winds, not too bad now, kind of getting in that green zone right there. So why isn't it developing? There's something that still seems to be sort of pushing down on this and not allowing it to go. Maybe the mid-level dry air that was mentioned several times in the discussions, and you can see that to some extent here even in this satellite imagery. Some fairly dry air off to the north and west, but it's just perplexing. And the problem is, even 12 hours before landfall, if everything comes together, it can ramp up very quickly. You remember yesterday morning, Tropical Depression 8 was sitting out here, and it wasn't even a depression yet, and all of a sudden it blossomed under just a few hours, 6 hours at the most of ideal conditions where it was, and it blossomed. And then those conditions quickly reversed, and it fell apart. So you have to just, not look at these things as they are and say that's the exact way it's going to be later. Basically prepare for a Category 1 hurricane if you're along the Big Bend area of Florida. And if you do that, and you should be prepared anytime. I know I sound like a broken record there. That's what everybody says. But it's true. If you're prepared for it, and then life can be a little bit easier for you. It's never going to make it, hurricane foolproof. That's very hard to do, but it can certainly help. So the upper level winds getting more favorable. The track forecast overall, and I'm going to talk about this for a moment. Why is it turning off towards the north and east with time? What is the reasoning behind that? Well, there's a little piece of shortwave energy coming down that will erode this big old ridge of high pressure. So instead of the Bermuda high and sort of a continental high over the United States being linked up like this, which would have just sent the system on west towards Texas, there's going to be a break in here. And that's going to allow the system to turn north and east around the backside of the Bermuda High and then come on up into the southwest Atlantic. Most of the guidance indicating a landfall somewhere in the Big Bend area, probably to the north and west of Cedar Key at this point. And that's going to put some storm surge in there, which we will talk about in just a moment. Now notice too that some of the models are indicating this sort of bend up here, and they're getting it pretty close to the North Carolina Outer Banks. Wait till I show you the latest GFS. You won't believe your eyes. Alright, so this is the intensity guidance, and overall steady increase over time. As you can see, most of the guidance fairly quickly ramping up to moderate tropical storm. This is in knots. So 50 knots would be about 60 miles per hour, and then they kind of level it off in there. So 60 to 70 mile per hour landfalling storm seems reasonable at this point. The statistical intensity hurricane prediction model ships, yeah, it gets it into hurricane category up here, category 1. And then later in the forecast period, this is after Florida over here, the GFS interpolated AVNI here gets it into hurricane intensity, but that's later on in the Atlantic. For Florida's west coast, this is the landfall window time frame, and most of the intensity guidance indicates a moderate tropical storm. Now, before you go off and say, well, that's nothing to worry about, in most places that would be true. The wind isn't going to be that bad. There will be some very heavy rainfall and the potential here for storm surge flooding, and that's what I want to talk about very closely here. This is a phenomenal new product, the potential storm surge flooding graphic, interactive from the National Hurricane Center. You can zoom in, you can zoom out on this system. It's phenomenal. So let's take a look. The forecast track comes across something like this with the center of circulation. The counterclockwise flow around that will be pushing the water into the Big Bend area of Florida. All right? And this area here, being concave in shape, captures that water very efficiently. And that's going to be very problematic, let me tell you. So let's zoom in on this map and see what's what. The legend down here, and remember I'm a geography degree holder, so I love thematic maps, tells us what to expect. The gray area is your intertidal zone and your estuarine wetland, so it's going to flood up and down during your tide cycles. And if you know the Nature Coast over here and up towards Cedar Key, you know the area, you know what it looks like. Manatee country too. The blue area is greater than 1 foot of flooding above ground level. The yellow area is greater than 3 feet above ground level, and the orange is 6 feet above ground level. And I'm going to emphasize that one more time. Above ground level. Those 3 words are extremely important. Above ground level. That means the flooding is expected to be above ground level. All right, it's as simple as it can be. But some people don't understand that quite yet. They think back in the old days where it was just 3 to 6 feet of surge overall, and then you got to figure out, well, how high does that mean it's going to be at my place? Well, this map starts to help us understand the areas that could receive inundation on dry land that would become flooded. So you look and you see the blue areas would be about 1 foot of actual flooding on property above ground level, all right? And then your yellow area is about 3 feet, okay? And it's mostly fairly sparsely populated area down here. But then there are some orange areas in here. Let's zoom in even further. 6 feet of flooding up near Gulf Hammock and points south and west of there. Over here just south of Rosewood. Now a lot of this area, okay, is certainly very marshy. You have Cedar Key down here. Wave action is going to come in here. But this area right through here is where the worst of the flooding looks like it's going to happen. And in some cases the water may rise 6 feet above ground level, and that's very important for anybody that lives down there or is traveling there or anything, okay? So if we look back up the coastline a little bit here, on up towards, what is that, Fowler Bluff, and I got to definitely learn my cities down here, and in a hurry. The inundation, pretty wide swath up here of 1 foot over here, then 3 feet, and all along the riverbanks here, and lowland flooding fairly far inland if you think about it. Okay, now let's zoom back out. So I know there's certainly going to be interest in the Tampa Bay area, so we can move back down and look at that region to the south. Spring Hill doesn't look too bad. Tampa Bay, maybe 1 foot or so of inundation. We can zoom in to take a closer look. And right in here you can see, for the most part, just a few areas where there might be 3 feet of surge flooding. But overall, in Tampa Bay and vicinity, and out towards the barrier islands, Clearwater, etc., not much inundation. And the main reason behind that is the track of the system and the angle of approach that's more than likely going to funnel the water up into this concave area that I talked about in this Big Bend region of Florida as a whole. Now, farther up the coast to the south and east of Tallahassee, and what some people affectionately refer to as the armpit of Florida, certainly not meant to be a derogatory description, it's just what it is. Again, up through here, some areas experiencing perhaps 1 to 3 feet of above ground flooding, and this would include all the way up into the area near St. Mark. I think that's on here. If this will show some of the city labels for me, that would be helpful. Let me zoom in. And this area again, yep, St. Mark's, Florida, Plum Orchard area south of there, and this really depends on the angle of attack. Now up here, sort of the worst track would be sort of to the northwest like this, where your onshore flow is funneling the water in as such. We're not seeing that with this situation. The track should come across like this, and that's why the areas farther to the south and east near Cedar Key would be the areas highest at risk. Homosassa Springs, that area at risk for storm surge flooding. So, that being said, I'm going to be heading down towards Gainesville tomorrow, and probably get a hotel room there. I will head out definitely to Cedar Key and place one of my unmanned camera systems there, and then probably put something over here at Homosassa Springs, and try to capture some of the storm surge flooding there. When I say capture, it'll be streaming live, and that brings me to the next slide. We have these unmanned cameras that we developed 10 years ago, the first generation. They were large, bulky, used Windows Media Encoder, had no sound, was a square image, that 4:3 television image. Worked pretty well. Used it first in 2005 and lots of deployments since then. But in the last couple of years, the technology has come around so that now these camera systems are much smaller, and this gives you an idea. It's like a large lunchbox, okay? And it's got a couple of battery packs inside, a small Wi-Fi camera, an internet mobile hotspot, and we can attach this to virtually anything that we think is going to still be there. In this example, it was set up along the Sabine River in Deweyville, Texas, where we had a significant river flood back in March. And this is what the camera saw. This was streaming live on our Ustream page. It's hard to see it. And this right here is a marker that we set up that shows you how high above the ground the water is getting. And there's a boat coming right down the main street here in Deweyville, Texas. This was streaming live. We had thousands and thousands and thousands of people watching over the course of the 30 hours that the batteries allowed it to run. And that is the runtime, by the way, about 30 hours. And I can set this up, put my marker in place, and leave it. And it'll have audio and 16:9, you know, like we're used to seeing on your flat screen TV or movie. Video quality, very high quality, and it's unmanned. I don't have to be there. It'll be sort of our sentry, if you will, guardian, whatever, looking out over the effects of whatever happens, and in this case, potentially Tropical Storm Hermine down in the Big Bend area of Florida. So I'm going to take 2 of these and set them up in Florida, and they will be streaming live at hurricanetrack.com. There will be a link. You can't miss it. You won't even have to search for it. It'll be right there, obvious where it is. And I'll also have, of course, the vehicle cam running at all times. And I can give you live wind and pressure readings and other reports like that. But I'm not too worried about the wind at this point. I'm going to get some water here as I keep going. Told you this was going to be lengthy, but there's a lot to go over. And that's the beauty of doing this on the internet, is I have all the time I need, just as long as I'm not too boring, right? So I plan to leave tomorrow around 9 a.m. Eastern, and I should be down setting up the cameras by tomorrow night, and they'll be running by the time you get up Thursday morning, and it'll be all on the hurricanetrack.com website. And I'll talk more about how you can follow along in just a minute. First, I want to go over the GFS because this is extremely interesting. it's either one run and we go, okay, well, that doesn't seem very plausible. Let's see what the 0Z guidance says. We'll see. All right, so this is the 12 UTC or 12Z run. This is valid 24 hours out. So this is Wednesday morning around the time I will be leaving tomorrow. There's our tropical system, TD9. Let's start using red here. Down in the Gulf of Mexico. There's TD8, some other vorticity sitting off the South Carolina coast. Gaston, 92L. I really want you to focus on this right here as I go through the maps, okay? So let me just circle that one more time. Keep your eyes on that feature as I progress through the maps. This is Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, Friday morning, Saturday morning. What in the world? It's like, wait a minute. It comes up, crosses, and then heads up right along the North Carolina coast. And then finally, Sunday morning. It's up here, not too far south of New England. For goodness sakes. It's like, are you kidding me? This is going to have to really be watched, folks, because after that turn, there's a chance that this could come up the East Coast closer and bring appreciable impacts to parts of the mid-Atlantic states. I'm not making this up. You can see it. I mean, this is the GFS operational run. Is it correct? I have no idea. But, we're talking the next 5 days, maybe. And you can see also, it's pretty well organized in here. That's a fairly decent tropical cyclone in the model. And then look at that. That's 92L coming in towards the Lesser Antilles. So to say that the next several days to a week or 10 days plus are going to be busy is an epic understatement. So we have to really watch this closely because it's now not just Florida, but potentially the South Carolina coastline, North Carolina. Let's go back. I want to show you a zoomed in picture of this if I can, and give you a better idea of where this might be headed. So let's look at the Western North Atlantic, GFS 850 millibar chart, and we'll look at the large version of it. So let's look here at hour number 96, for example. There it is, sitting here right off the coast of North Carolina. And if we zoom in on that, that's not too far southeast of Cape Hatteras. And, I mean, good grief, that wasn't... who was planning on that? So we need to watch this extremely closely over the next little while. I wish it would let you just go back and select the next one. So let's go to 72 hours just to give you an idea, backing off a little bit into time. I mean, here it is over southeast Georgia at hour 72. It makes landfall right up there in the, as I showed you, sort of that armpit area of Florida, if you will. Appalachia Bay, I guess that's the better way to call it. And then it comes off and kind of hugs the coast like this. So this is interesting, needless to say. So we got to watch that closely. There's so much going on between what's happening out near Hawaii to watching TD number 9, which I really hope gets upgraded soon so we can start calling it a tropical storm. Just easier to deal with, in my opinion, and more people pay attention to it. And I'm headed out tomorrow, so lots to keep up with for sure. Now, to follow along in what all I will be doing, I got a slide here I forgot to bring up. There we go. Certainly follow along on YouTube, subscribe for future updates and videos. The subscription rate of people signing up has gone up. I don't charge money for that. We do have that on our website, but the numbers of subscribers has gone up appreciably lately, and that's awesome. That's great that people are interested in what I have to say. I appreciate it. But you can also follow along on our app, and now that there's a landfall coming up, hurricane impact really starts coming into play. Even though it probably won't be a hurricane in Florida, it is about the impact when it's all said and done. So you can follow along in our app. It's right on the App Store and on Google Play. Search Hurricane Impact. It's 2 words. We have the blog updates, video discussions, and let me tell you, I will be able to shoot video blogs in the field and put them in the app at a moment's notice. And of course they'll be going to YouTube and you can just see them there, but they also go to the app instantaneously. So anywhere you are, go to the video section of the app, pull down refresh, and there'll be a chronological listing of all the video posts that I make while I'm out in the field. It's an excellent way to keep up with what's happening while I'm on the road here covering this event. I won't be setting up any weather stations for this one, so on this mission I won't have any live weather data, but we do have our own weather stations that we set up in hurricanes, and might have to look at that for later. Interesting how things change. And I will be setting up one of our cams. It's a webcam, our still image version of the Surge Cam that I showed you with this. This is live video. The Surge Cam in the app is an image that gets updated every 60 seconds, acting like a Surge Cam. Live video in the app is just, we're not ready for that yet. Too complicated to get into. Why? Mainly because I have so many different cameras that you wouldn't be able to keep up with them all. And we need an iPad app to do that, and that costs money. And we haven't had many hurricanes to have people be interested in funding it, so you get the idea. But we do have a Surge Cam in the app, and it'll have the marker set up and everything. So follow along. Hurricane Impact. Hey, you know, for $3 you can't get any better local field coverage, video updates during the season, and even off-season discussions. And it's a great way to support what we're doing here at Hurricane Track. All right? So search for Hurricane Impact on the App Store, and I'll see you while I'm out there. I am Mark Sudduth for HurricaneTrack.com. Thanks for sitting through this lengthy but hopefully informative discussion on what's happening in the tropics. I'll have another video update for you in the morning, and then it's time to hit the road.